Well, I'm on the road, but I was able to catch Tom Teague, and we're both kind of in the raw here. So I'm at a hotel in outside France, outside Charles de Gaulle, and Tom is at Bloomberg Central. So, Tom, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
So we got the Fed, we got markets. Let's start with the Fed. Is Lisa Cook going to get? You were early on this, man. You brought
Yeah.
this way early. So congrats on that. But tell us what you think is going to happen.
Well, look, I think anyone who was thinking that there was any kind of semblance of independence in the Fed is now quite aware that there's not.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing when the Democrats talk about their democracy. It's very, very similar stuff. Only they can be independent. It's like the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
So I think Trump has realized that the sort of last bastion of resistance against him in the government is probably the Fed. There's a lot of stuff happening. Kugler, since we last spoke, resigned. No one knows really why, but she left. So Trump's going to have, 4 seats, maybe 5 seats. And that gives him if he can get Cook out. I think the fact that she's holding on and the fact that she has a lawyer that was the same lawyer that advised Hunter Biden tells me that she's just part of that group. I mean, most other people who have had scandals in the Fed have stepped down because it obviously hurts the credibility. She should do the same. I don't see her doing it because obviously they do not want to lose power inside the Fed. And she was Biden appointee. She was a 51-50 with Kamala Harris breaking the tiebreaker. As I mentioned before, she's got a history. Her PhD, one of her dissertation was on regarding the patents filed by Afro-Americans and, what was happening to them during the Jim Crow laws. And they debunked that whole thing and said, we don't even keep track of this anymore. So she's not a real credible person. But she's part of that group that stands in Trump's way. So, I think he's made it very obvious, that he wants to get people who are competent in and who are going to make the right decisions. I just don't see how anybody can be on the fence now about the Fed being independent. I mean, it's a total joke.
Totally. And you put your finger on it. They don't want to lose power at the Fed. I mean, that's a lot of power, man. It's a power to print money. It's a power to start wars. It's power.
Well, it's not. What's really interesting that you say that is I was reading some stuff today. So one of Bessent's things is he's looking to start possibly, in terms of a payment system for coins like crypto coins that are backed by U.S. dollars. So we talked about this before. But the interesting thing, and I didn't realize this, there is about 16 trillion euro dollars outstanding, right? And in a fractional banking system, someone comes in and deposits money in Europe, and then the banks can lend out that money, and it goes through the system and ends up being like 10 times at the end what the of lending that the actual initial deposit was. And there's a multiplier factor for that. So it's there and it's in existence. I think what Bessent wants to do is he wants to start forcing the dollars that exist outside of the U.S. system, like the euro dollars that are outside of the regulatory purview of the U.S. He can back them in these stable coins by treasuries, right? So you put your dollars in. It's a stable coin. The stable coin and goes and buys a treasury. Why that's interesting is if you look at all the South countries like, South America, Mexico, all of Latin America, if you look at places like in Asia, like Philippines, India, it'll give these people the ability to circumvent their own banking systems and buy these stable coins. Now, we have about, I think, $34 trillion of debt.
Yeah.
That's about the amount of dollars there are circulating outside of the U.S. system. So if you could do stable coins for these, and they've got all kinds of ways to kind of get people into this. They can say that we're not going to accept, we're going to we're going to put sanctions on you, we're going to pressure you, and effectively we can use some of our technological advantages to force people to buy these stable coins rather than hold dollars like in Eurodollar accounts in banks. And we can do that, regulatory pressure on Europe. So this is like meaningful. And what it actually could end up being is that in some ways the Fed becomes sort of like, no longer really useful, because the Treasury could actually go out and borrow money with stable coins and have the stable coins buy the Treasury bills, and they could sell the Treasury bills at a lower yield than the Fed's got Fed funds at. That's a possibility.
Well, it also
this is really meaningful.
It also deals with the dollar demand issue, right? I mean, because if you're buying treasuries, you're using dollars, and you need dollars to buy the treasuries, so that increases demand. So if you sell more to back what is it, RLUSD? Is that what we're talking about here? That's one of them. Right?
There's a bunch of them, yeah. But I just think it's really interesting. Someone that I read today was saying that this is like one of these 50, 60-year events that completely changes like global finance and the global monetary system. And to the extent that, I love the idea, to the extent that Trump's administration can get people to use stable coins that are backed by treasuries, it takes out a lot of the supply of treasuries.
Yeah.
So this is really bullish potentially for the treasury markets.
Wow. Which would lower rates, right? Or at least,
effectively it would. And it will also, create a lot more demand than we necessarily have to offer. Like that's a lot. $16 trillion of euro dollars outstanding is a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
I never thought of all that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think this is one thing that's come up. I think that's really, really, positive news. It'll take a while, but I think it's something that Bessent wants to do, and I think it's genius, actually.
So this is, again, as we started this off, why they want to maintain power at the Fed, because they don't want to. I mean, the Fed is a private banking cartel that is working for its own interests, not the American
100%.
people. So
100%.
if we can pull power away from that for our audience sake, that's a good thing. Because they literally print money to enable the military-industrial complex to operate on a continuous basis. So fascinating. So
they also create cycles. They shouldn't be creating economic cycles.
Right.
They're, the whole idea that I've watched them for years, and during Trump's first term, I don't know if you remember, but when Trump came in, Powell started raising rates when Trump started deregulating the economy.
Yeah.
And Trump was like, this guy's going loco. And everybody's like, how can he say that? He shouldn't be saying that. He has every right to say that. And now we look back and look at the fact that last year when we were going into election, they cut 50 basis points when we had like 2.4% CPI. We got 2.7, and the economy is actually really starting to show signs that it's slowing down now. And these guys are like, we don't want to cut rates because maybe there's going to be some tariff issues. Well, that just hasn't transpired. So they're just finding excuses. And it's in my opinion, this is really one of the biggest deals that Trump has to overcome to really get his agenda done.
So you mentioned cycles. It's also a weapon for creating crises to increase, central government power, right?
Absolutely.
If you look at the 2008 crisis, if you listen to Catherine Austin Fitts, she's like, they stole all this. They created these crises to pull the money out of the economy and put it somewhere else. Anyway, you can go down that rabbit hole, but
the
Fed has been part of that. So what about markets? We're riding pretty high right now. What do you think?
Well, NVIDIA just reported they were all beats, except they were a little lower in their data center revenue. The stock's, kind of down about 3%. They're getting ready to do their conference call. I think overall the market's kind of, priced in already a cut in September. When Powell spoke last week at Jackson Hole, he was one of the key things that happened there that we haven't mentioned was we've had this like 2% inflation target for ages. And it was done back in, I think, 2012. and it was a intolerable inflation rate based on the fact that we were worried about deflation. Like, how hot could it run to get economy started? We're in a completely different environment now, and everybody has been wondering when the Fed is going to take this target off. We haven't been at 2% in 3 years or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So they did mention that they were going to kind of make that more of a kind of soft target now. And I think that's a big deal. So I was actually surprised when Powell spoke last Friday that he was as dovish as he was. Maybe some of the pressure is getting to him. Maybe he's seeing things differently, but that's one of the things they needed to address. And I think they have. So markets are generally pretty positive on that. Bonds are behaving, a lot better than they have been. I don't think any of this crypto stuff about the stable coins is like really gotten that far out. So I don't think there's any of that being priced in. I just think, to get out of this debt situation that we're in as a country, we really have to grow this economy massively. And the key to that is to get rates lower, get the housing market starting again, and things are, the economy starts booming and we fall into place.
Interesting. What about Europe? You spend a lot of time over there. I mean, to me, it's getting worse and worse. I saw something that 40,000 manufacturing jobs lost in Germany or something this month.
Yeah, it's yes, I did. It's absolutely terrible. I mean, Germany's industrial production now is like where it was during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Germany's falling apart. The crime rates are going crazy. And the interesting thing is, like, I think if everyone sort of suffers equally, it's tolerable, right? So all these crazy ideas like carbon net zero and all these crazy things that Europe was going to try to do, the US was, under Biden was supportive of that and sort of had the same goals. And I think to some extent, Europe and Canada, Australia have been used as sort of like these like petri dishes to try and grow this like Fabian socialist economy, where the government sort of centrally plans everything, and like climate change is a big focus, and it's just failing. I mean, it's just massively failing. And this week, the leader of the AfD in Germany basically said that they would leave the euro. So France today, France today yields. Europe is in a crisis, and it's beginning now. So French yields spiked today. I mean, German yields have already come up for a country that's as fiscally sound as Germany.
Special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
It's not trading where it should be. And so all this MMT that these countries have done forever is starting to catch up with them. And now what? Now they've got these like dying economies and they're so far behind us. I just don't know what Europe is going to possibly do outside of starting a war, which they will lose with Russia. I don't know what they're going to do to get out of it. They're going to have to massively deregulate, and they're going to have to deal with their demographic issues as well.
Well, it's obvious to me, and there was a great article on Zero Hedge, because did you see the two young Scottish girls, 14 and 12?
Yes.
She had a knife.
Yes.
I mean, that was like a turning point right there, right? For me. I mean, it's like a 14-year-old girl defending herself from migrants with a hatchet. I mean,
that's iconic. It's everywhere totally, now, that photo.
Yeah. So it was intentional what they've done to Europe. So they have to have thought this through. So what do you think the end game is? They have to have seen this coming because they destroyed the economy. They destroyed the population.
They've told people what the end game is, right? Mm-hmm. It's the WEF is not shy about it. Keir Starmer is a self-proclaimed Fabian socialist. Mm-hmm. The end game is for the government to basically regulate everything and centrally plan everything, and have a few elites control everything and own everything. We don't own anything. They control all of our energy. They control our cars. They control our ability to travel. everything, they can flip a switch and we're done. And I think that's been the goal all along. There's an element of cloudward pivot in there too, that especially in the US, they want to break the system so that you get real wealth distribution. And quite frankly, I'm blown away by how many people still don't get that in the US.
Yeah.
So, I mean, cloudward pivot was a sociologist, two guys at Columbia, I think in the 60s. And the idea is that you overload the benefit system, which is exactly what they've done in Europe. Eventually it will collapse because there's not enough money. And then you can actually start redistributing wealth. And I think that's been the whole goal the whole time. And, it's kind of like, I always look at what happened during COVID in this country to explain to people why it's so important to have not one centrally controlled thing, but to have a bunch of competitive markets.
Yes.
So when states started basically opening up, you remember Biden was like, these people are Neanderthals, they're crazy, everyone's going to die. It showed the US what a load of crap the lockdowns were. And it also exposed the states that were the harshest. They didn't need to do that. So this competitive idea of a competitive marketplace, and that's what we're seeing under Trump. I have a lot of, former colleagues and friends in Europe, and they look at what's going on in the US and they're like, this is actually working. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Bessent was saying yesterday in the cabinet meeting that they were going to take in between $500 billion and $1 trillion in tariffs. I think that's very blue sky, but that is a meaningful amount of money. And also in the interim, with all these renegotiations on tariffs, we've changed some of these bad trade deals that we've had with countries that we've been suffering from, and our working class people have been suffering for 20, 30 years. It's phenomenal. So, I think Europe, long-winded, I think Europe is in a lot of trouble. And I think there's going to be it's going to start getting priced in that the euro may break apart.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen. I mean, obviously it was not sound to begin with, but I'm here in France on a long layover, and I tried to go into Rumble to do some stuff, and it's blocked. So Europe is way down the censorship train, man. I mean,
big time.
So
big time.
Why is Trump putting up with this crap? Why is Trump even talking to Starmer when he's got 14-year-old girls defending themselves with a hatchet? I mean,
I think Trump's very aware of what's going on. I don't want to put words in his mouth or I don't want to try and predict, I understand what's in someone's mind too much. But I think that if you look at a lot of the steps Trump's taking, it is to shake up this so-called new world order. So, I mean, I think he has to work with these guys to some extent. He has to negotiate trade deals because they're big trading partners. But I think in the back of his mind, a lot of this is to get rid of these sort of Fabian socialist governments across Europe. And I think he's making it very difficult for him. For example, a lot of the technology companies, they were censoring things. They were trying to fine them. They were trying to tax them in Europe. That was a big part of these trade deals with Europe so that they could not do this. Right. So Trump's definitely thinking the right way. And the interesting thing is Europe is so far behind in technology that he can use that as a wedge. And it's not like they're going to build their own networks and social media companies and all that tomorrow. It's going to be tough to do that for themselves. So they need us. It's either us or China. And I don't think people really want to use, Chinese products in that respect.
Well, I walked through the passport line. It's all automated, and you stand in this little cubicle, and it's literally out of a movie. I mean, you see what it's doing. It scans your face multiple times, different ways, diagonally, and everything. It's totally mapping you out. And I'm like, man, this is creepy. So I don't like the facial recognition stuff, but
it makes me nervous.
If one government falls, the party's over, right? So is it Germany? Is it France? Is it England? It's one of those three, I would think.
Well, they're all in deep trouble. All the existing governments, the status quo is in deep trouble. Like I saw today, I think that Labour is 12 points behind the Reform Party in the UK. The AFD is way ahead in Germany. There's only so much, cheating, censorship, legal stuff that these countries can do before people have just absolutely had enough. And I think, this young girl brandishing, a hatchet and a knife is like a symbol of all that. I think
Big
people are
time.
really fed up, and they understand what their governments have been trying to do to them. You know, there's just a deep hatred for any kind of nationalist feeling, any kind of cultural like preservation, any of this stuff across Europe, and people have had enough of it. So they're going to vote these guys in. And I, you know, I think that's their only real salvation. If these guys take their medicine, get some populists in, and start trying to, you know, open themselves up and move forward instead of trying to be these like, you know, dystopian societies, that, you know, maybe they've got a shot, but it's going to be a rough ride for them.
Well, I think, what was that girl screaming? My stay away from my sister. She's effing 12. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't get any more raw
It's
than
just
that.
it's unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow. What else on the markets? Anything you know, like pop out at you right now that people need to be aware of?
I think that I think, you know, you just got to watch what Trump's doing with the Fed. Like, I personally believe that if he can start cutting rates, if he can get, you know, the Fed on his side, and that doesn't necessarily mean putting puppets in that are going to, like, he needs to put competent people, and I think he will. But it's like the Supreme Court. You know, if he puts in his guys, the Supreme Court leans one way, and if Biden and Obama put their guys, it leans the other. So I am absolutely wildly bullish on the U.S. if they can accomplish some of these things. I think, you know, short term we're pretty overbought, but I think you know what Trump's doing right now, it's really changing the world financial like sort of order, and
Yeah.
it's forcing issues that need to be looked at, and you know, getting rates lower in this country is a huge hurdle to moving forward, paying down our debt, getting our economy to grow. So, you know, I'm pretty confident that he's going to achieve that one way or the other. And I think, you know, I think the guy is just doing a terrific job in that respect. So
I would
I'm
agree.
pretty bullish right now.
Yeah, I just want there's some things, you know, he came out the other day and said, wasn't that warp speed thing so great? We did such a good job. I'm like, dude, where does that come from? I mean, you killed millions.
I don't I don't think that serves him well, but you know, I mean, what I've realized is I think because everybody spends so much time on social media, they sort of believe they sort of have a direct line because they make comments to him. And I've realized that I don't like everything he says, but I look at sort of the totality of it, and I look at the direction he's moving, and it's just, I never thought we would be here by now at this far of a progression, you know, by 9 months. I never thought that was possible. I never thought, you know, people didn't think the tariffs were going to work. People didn't think anything he's done was going to work. And it's complete common sense. It's what needed to be addressed, but he's actually been able to do it. So I'm pretty pleased about that.
Well, there's definitely some momentum, and it's this. I feel like the speed is picking up. We've got election fraud. We've got, you know, a lot of.
Oh yeah, I mean that's something he mentioned yesterday. So he obviously knows something that when he had that discussion between himself and Tulsi Gabbard, he obviously knows there's some details to follow there.
Yeah,
you know.
Excellent, Tom. Thank you so much. Appreciate you
got it.
jumping on last minute. Take care.
Anytime. Take.